Also known that his favourite battle is an engagement between Hannibal's Carthaginians and the Romans at Cana 2,000 years ago.
In the deserts of Arizona, America rehearses for what it always believed would be the classic land battle. In the past, it might have taken place on the plains of Germany. Today, commanders make their plans in the deserts of Saudi Arabia, though the scenario's the same. A huge army with enough land to operate effectively. An army whose tactics may find inspiration from another battle 2,000 years ago. In 216 BC, this stretch of land north of the Italian city of Bari witnessed one of the greatest defeats ever suffered by the Roman Empire. 2 years earlier, Hannibal had crossed the Alps into Italy. Now, with major victories behind him, he seized the hilltop town of Cannae, which was of great strategic importance. Rome dispatched the largest army it had ever put into the field to deal with this new threat. On a winter's day like this, it's difficult to imagine the heat and dust as the might of the Roman army, some 90,000 strong, faced Hannibal's mercenary army of 50,000 on the plain which stretches from the ancient citadel of Cannae to the river beyond. As the Romans moved forwards with their cavalry deployed on either side, Hannibal put his weakest troops, the Spaniards and the Gauls, in the middle. Drawn to the centre by this ploy, the legions continued to advance. But to the left and right of that advance, Roman horsemen were fleeing before Hannibal's elite cavalry, which then moved round with his foot soldiers in what's termed a double entrapment, squeezing the tightly packed Roman legions who could barely move to defend themselves. 40,000 of them died in the ensuing carnage, among them Paulus Aemilius, one of the army's two senior commanders. Hannibal's pioneering tactics had lost him just 6,000 and were to be admired by military men through history. Admiration shared by General Norman Schwarzkopf, Allied commander in the Gulf and an avid historian. Cannae is said to be his favourite battle, and like so many young officers, he learnt its lessons at America's West Point Academy. West Point is the US equivalent of Sandhurst. The young men and women who train there are considered the cream of the officer corps. Norman Schwarzkopf, in common with all those who reached the academy, faced the practicalities of army life combined with a great deal of military history.
Okay, yeah. And we're going to talk about Cannae on a very, very grand scale here, are we not?
Today, as then, Hannibal's victory at Cannae is a source of discussion.
Yeah. What happens if we can make that penetration in, as was made in the ancient Battle of Cannae? What happens when we make that penetration on the two shoulders?
Find the enemy weakness, dislocate the enemy force, use mobility and superior agility to achieve a mass and a decisive effect on the battlefield. Cannae was all of that.
But can the lessons of the past be applied to a desert land battle in the Gulf? Concern to keep casualties as low as possible may well mean the Allies avoid the strongly defended positions along the Kuwaiti border. Instead, they may favour a long sweep round, drawing out elite Republican Guard units for the big set-piece battle. As the Iraqis move forward, the Allies would deploy a defensive wall of dug-in armour. With Iraqi units brought up short, Allied armour would then move to cut off any escape route, as two more tank groups attacked the trapped Republican Guard units in a classic cavalry manoeuvre. But Saddam Hussein's officers know their military history too. Many of them were trained in Britain, and they'll also know their opponents. They'll know that the ultimate head of Allied operations is not Schwarzkopf, but Colin Powell, the first chairman of the US Joint Chiefs of Staff not to go to West Point. A man who may well reject classroom tactics and adopt a less conventional strategy. At Cannae, ranks of grapevines now line the fields where the legions fought and died, graves in the town, testimony to Hannibal's initiative. Saddam Hussein may be prepared for similar tactics, but he cannot be sure. And what he certainly can't know is where and when.